Okay, so here goes. Podcast episode 2. I'm with my good friend Israel. And it's raining really bad right now, but we're just gonna see how this goes. So what's up, dude?
Yo.
You're trying to get sober, huh?
Yeah, man. I think today's the 5th day. I started Monday. I went on a little family trip, got super drunk, and that's when the stigma of like going out and like having a good time always has to be backed by some sort of substance hit me. So I told myself a week before that trip that I was gonna go sober, but I think like, you know, getting drunk on that trip with my family kind of like set it in stone for me. Like, this is something that I actually want to do. But it's actually been really good. I mean, I've had urges to drink and smoke, and I kind of like realized the cycle I was in where like I think drinking was a problem, so I would go to weed, and I think weed was a problem, so I'd start hitting nicotine and cigarettes, and I think that's a problem, so I start drinking again. And it's like a constant cycle of just like, this is a problem, let me solve it with another problem instead of fixing it.
So like that happened like a lot. Like you would start something and then you try to fix it with this, and then it kind of turned into like 3 at a time.
Yeah, dude. It just
like
got
collected.
Yeah, it got out of control. Especially like I would say the past year in my life, if not 2 years. Just the fact that everything was so redundant. I feel like energy-wise, it kind of just made me feel very stagnant as a human being, like I wasn't growing like I should.
Right.
So decided to change that shit, man.
What have you been doing to distract yourself? Like, I see you cook a lot.
That's actually a really big thing for me, cooking. It really helps me get my mind off of things. I just like the art of it and like trying new recipes and seeing how stuff tastes and what I'm good at and what I'm not good at and what I need to improve. Another thing is activeness, like trying to be active and do physical things with my body instead of just sitting around all day and letting my mind roam. That's another really good way to get my mind off of things. And then my YouTube, you know, filming stuff. Because I've been talking about doing a YouTube for I don't even know how long, bro. Like a while, and then finally, like with this sobriety shit, I was just like, dude, now's the time. It's either now or never, because I'm tired of talking about shit and not doing it.
Yeah, is that like something hard for you, like finding something to do, like saying you're gonna do it and then finding the time to
yeah,
do it?
dude. And
because like it is hard sometimes. You say,
yeah,
I'm this way or I'm that way, and then it's like your actions sometimes need to line up, but it's like hard because things get in the way and like temptation comes along and things like that, you know, like
that self-distraction, bro. And that's like another reason why I wanted to get rid of like my vices and my addictions, was because I felt like they were holding me back, and I was kind of like warping my mind into believing that they were helping me, but like nothing good has came out of these past 3 to 4 years of just being addicted to stuff. I'm not saying like my life was shit and, you know, like it's just bad things happened all the time, but it was like I wasn't doing enough good for myself and enough like productive stuff in my life for me to see any results that I like truly were happy of. I've accomplished small things, you know, like I've always been into music and I, you know, did that, but even with that, I used weed kind of as a crutch to fuel my creativity. And that's kind of why I've been waiting to like be fully sober and to hop into the music game like with a complete sober mind. It's because like when you're high and you're like making music, I feel like you're so like conformed to like ideas that you want to rap about or like sing about. And it was always like I had to be like sad or like talk about like money and weed or like, you know, it was just like very, very redundant stuff in my mind. But that may not be the case for everybody. But for me personally, that's how it was.
Music, it's like you're either making music for yourself or for other people.
Yeah.
Or like you just make music and it doesn't
And that's
matter.
like, dude, I feel like I was
ways.
smoking weed for other people.
Really?
Like getting drunk for other people. Yeah, because it's like anytime I'd hang out with like old friends or like, you know, go to a club or fucking go out to a restaurant, I'd be like, oh, let's smoke before, like, oh, let's get drunk, or oh, you know, like it was always like, let's feel something other than sobriety to like enhance the situation, but like it never really enhanced anything. Like I'd always just get groggy, or like, you know, I've had good times drunk, but like the bad times outweighed, especially the next morning when you feel like shit and you're just like hungover and you're like, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah, I've heard so many people talk about it, like, I'll never do this again, and then you see them like drinking, and
I've been like I got so messed up one night, and like I just woke up the next morning like throwing up and just feeling like a bag of shit, and I'm just like, man, I'm never gonna do this again, you know, this is terrible. And then a week later, not even, I'm getting drunk again.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's human. We're human. Yeah. You know? Like that's what we do that.
But isn't it weird how like it's a very strong stigma, like even like going out to eat and stuff. It's like, well, at least for my family too, it's like always, oh, well, I'm gonna get a beer, or I'm gonna get a wine, or you know, I'm gonna take some shots. And then that leads to more and more and more, and then eventually you're just like building that tolerance up to where you're just getting faded all the time and you don't even realize it, and that takes an effect on your mind and body a lot more than people think.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's too, like, I feel like I'm really receptive to that type of stuff. Like when I damage my body, I really feel it. And like
you're self-aware.
Yeah, like some people can just smoke like 2 packs of cigarettes a day for years, and like, you know, they seem like completely fine, but with me, I'll be like, man, my chest, my lungs, like something's not right. Maybe it's just paranoia and me like telling myself like, dude, you're harming your body. But yeah, I genuinely feel a lot going on with myself, especially my mind.
That's interesting. I don't think a lot of people think like that, because a lot of people sometimes get caught up in it and they're just like,
yeah,
they just don't
like
care.
Yeah, like,
and they wait until like years later, where then they actually start to see results of
and that's when they're like, the regret sets in, and that's something I want to prevent, because I've seen that happen to people.
Because that's actually a good way to get away from it, is to feel the negative, like realize what it is doing to you, or whatever. Like,
and it's crazy too that I've met some people that they're like, oh, I agree with you, you know, like I had one friend, and he looked at me one day, he's like, bro, do you ever smoke cannabis and just like while you're high you feel like you're about to die? And I was like, I've had that anxiousness, but never like to the point where I thought I was gonna die. Maybe like when I first started smoking when I was young. And I was like, man, why do you still smoke if like you feel like that every time you smoke? And he's like, I don't know, bro. And like that just shows how like when you put yourself in a cycle, it's kind of like a behavior, you know. Like when a person with anger issues gets mad, they might punch something. Well, with like stoners, you know, a lot of them, any like sort of inconvenience, not even, bro. Like I used to wake up first thing in the morning and just blaze and get high. And it was kind of like, I wouldn't say I started questioning that until like probably 2 years ago. And I would like really sit there and be like, why am I doing this? And I've tried to go sober a couple of times, and I've been sober for like 3 months at a time, you know. And stuff like that. But
well, that's good to see. Like 3 months, hey, I made it that far. And something I tell myself, like, because I deal with addiction too, like for other things, like not just whatever, but I tell myself, if I can make it over this moment, then I can make it every day, all the time. Like every temptation that comes my way, if I can make it past it, I'm good.
Yeah, I've been addicted to some other things too, man.
Well, one thing is like nicotine. It's easy because it's like it's legal, and it's like everywhere you look, somebody's got something with nicotine. And then
that's how I felt about weed too, bro.
Yeah, that's everywhere.
Because my family too, I grew up around my family just smoking weed. But I would say the next biggest addictive thing is porn, especially for young men. And Jordan B. Peterson actually talked about something very interesting. There's like a study how like men with porn are visual and women are like literature. Like they read about,
like to hear,
it's like pornographic readings.
Right.
And men are like more visual based, like they'd rather watch something, which kind of stood out to me. Like it just shows like there's a lot of things that young men struggle with that are kind of like shut out, you know, like people don't really grasp like the dangers that a lot of young men experience growing up.
Yeah, because for that, it's like, for one thing, people accept it. People just say it's normal to masturbate every day. It's porn. Like, it's accepted, but at the same time, it's also like, in the Christian community or like religious community, it's like not accepted. It's you're shamed for that, and it's kind of weird because it's like, on one hand, it's like you shouldn't do it, and on the other hand, it's like nobody cares about it. Like,
I mean, I've even talked to people on Instagram, like just random people in comment sections and stuff, relating to stuff like pornographic addiction and stuff. And there's people who got really defensive with me when I like told them that it's bad for their brain, and they're like, nah, dude, it's normal. Like, there's nothing wrong with letting a load off. You know, like, it's actually good for you, science says. And I'm like, bro, there's no way in hell, like, anybody, like, I don't even have to look at scientific studies to know that shit's unnatural and not supposed to be, like, a thing. And I feel like it's hard, though, for a lot of younger people, too, who don't have the sexual outlet to relieve sexual tension without porn and stuff like that.
Right.
But once you, like, work past that, man, it's a beautiful thing. I think that a lot of people could learn from, like, using that sexual energy for something better than just a split moment of satisfaction.
I mean, I've dealt with that since I was 11.
Yeah, me too, bro. My dad used to watch porn.
Addiction.
I fucking wake up and see my dad have porn on the TV and he like passed out. So I knew what porn was from like a very young age. But that was an addiction.
Cool. It's cool once you realize like you go without it. I've noticed so many benefits from it. Like I've had more positive experience with females. Like I talk to females now, when before I was just afraid to even say anything. Yeah. But it also fucks with your view of women too. Like you just see women as objects and not.
Yeah. Or you have like a really like negative view on women, like they're all cheaters or they're all like just whores, or you know, you come up with like this crazy fantasy in your head. Yeah. From seeing porn stars get their backs blown out, you know? It's fucking insane, dude. But like,
it is.
There's a lot of things that people are very afraid to talk about, especially as like young men. You know, you're scared to like be shamed and whatnot, and it's easier to be in your room, you know, whacking off to a website with, you know, all your darkest fantasies and deepest pleasures there at your fucking fingertips, instead of like saying like, you know, maybe the easiest outlet isn't the most positive. But I dealt with that growing up. In like elementary school, I knew what porn was, like all the way through high school, and then I finally like was like, dude, this shit's fucking whack. But I will say that porn never really made me afraid to talk to women, but it kind of like drove me to want to talk to women even more, because I got so like fed up with looking at a phone to where I like wanted to be physically with the woman. And then once I was with the women, that's when I got addicted to actual sex.
Right.
So I just abused that, and I was like trying to fulfill a sense of like pleasure that I gave myself that was like very rarely met. Very rarely. Like, you know, like I was never really satisfied with a woman, because I think porn kind of put it into my head that it's like cool to have options, you know, like I could scroll through pages and find a girl attractive and be like, oh, I'm gonna jack off to her. Yeah, and I kind of like took that into my relationships and into like the real world, where I was like, oh, if I'm tired of this girl sexually, I'll just move on and find another girl that I find attractive. And that shit takes a toll on your mind and body too, bro. Like, sex is not as...
Because that, when you think about it, like, from that perspective, it's like, are you with this person because you like them, or is it because you just find them like sexually attractive and that's it?
There's like, so many relationships like that, dude. It's insane.
It's just crazy because like maybe there is some people you can like quote unquote fall in love with that are like that, but if y'all erase the whole sexuality chaos or whatever component, are y'all actually in love? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like you gotta find each other's true selves before you can say that y'all are in love or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you know.
A lot of time it's lust.
Yeah, like lust
and it's I will say that lust and love are very hard to decipher if you've never been in love fully. And that was something for me, because like I'd feel these connections with people, and I'd just be like, dude, is this love? You know, like, am I in love with this chick? And then that fades away, and then it's like, with the next chick, am I in love? Or, you know, is this us? And then, especially when sex comes into play, because sex is a very powerful thing. Like, especially for me, like, I'm a very intense lover. Like, I feel, you know, like I'm creating love in that moment, in that,
right.
you know, short span of time of whatever it may be, 15 minutes to an hour, and then it's like, that right there is love. And then I'll think about it the next day, like, damn, like, that feeling of, like, pleasure of just, like, you know,
like, it's no longer in this moment.
Yeah.
it's like
a paradox almost.
Yeah.
And then you keep chasing it and chasing it. But yeah, once I decided to stop chasing that shit, first it was, I'm gonna stop chasing it with porn, and then I chased it through actual relationships I had, and then after I was like, fuck this, you know, it's not something that I want to keep doing. And some people live their life like that. They're just like, fuck relationships, I'm just gonna have sex with whoever I want to have sex with. And my advice is to never do that. I mean, to each is their own, but like, experience, but never go down that road to where you're just like, I used to be like that. Oh, I'm never gonna fall in love, I'm just gonna fuck, and you know, no attachments. That's a very slippery slope. And it's kind of like fucked up how schools like build people to be so naive to like the dangers of sex too, with like STDs and stuff like that. Like, because I grew up, you know, I knew about like some stuff through sexual ed, but I didn't know like things like AIDS or like syphilis or herpes, you know, things that you have to live with like with the rest of your life. And luckily I've never got anything that's permanent.
Right.
But some people aren't as lucky, dude. Like, some people they have like a false sense of like invincibility with sex. Like, oh, I can fuck whoever I want and it's fine. Like, nah, dude, you fucked the wrong person. You gotta live with that for the rest of your life. You gotta take medicine for it. Crazy. That was one of my biggest fears, dude. And that's one of the big ones that hit me to stop. Because I did like research on like how the body reacts to certain diseases and stuff, like STDs. And dude, it is
I never looked into that ever.
It's not pretty, bro.
I never thought about it, you know? Like, I didn't even know that it was a thing. Like,
dude.
Like, I knew that STDs were a thing, but like you're saying, like, invincible or whatever, it's like, I never put it into my, like, perspective that that's possible.
And that, too, is why, like,
that's
like,
crazy.
from your, like, perspective, so say you met a really nice girl and, like, y'all hit it off and y'all have sex unprotected. Even with a condom, you can still get STD, but just for the example, you have sex unprotected. And, like, you know, like, you never thought about it that way. And then you, like, I don't know, say you get herpes and you start getting flare-ups on your balls or something. And you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then you go to a doctor, and then from, like, having that naive perception to, like, a doctor saying, oh, well, you're diagnosed with herpes, you have to take this pill for the rest of your life to keep it tamed, and every time you're with a sex partner, you have to let them know. Or, well, you don't really have to, but, like, it's the moral thing to do.
Right.
And it's like, that can really destroy somebody, bro. That can, like, change somebody's perception of, like, love and trust and sex to, like, a whole darker level. And that's something I'm thankful that I've never experienced. But I've known people who have, like, I've known a girl who came to me and was like, yeah, I got herpes and I have to live with this shit for the rest of my life. And I was just like, fuck, dude, like, that sucks.
Yeah,
like,
that fucking sucks.
It's sad, yeah. But it's the world we live in, man.
Man, that is crazy.
Yeah. You gotta think about that shit, dude.
I know, right?
Cause once it's there, bro. That's the fucked up thing about it. And I'm sure there's a cure, but like, that's another topic.
There's
medicine.
Probably a cure for everything.
Yeah, like there's gotta be a cure for everything. Either holistically or like scientifically. I feel like there's a cure for everything.
A lot of times I feel like people just don't question what they're eating, or don't question the environment they're around. They just kind of like accept everything for what it is, and they don't really see the whole picture, because a lot of times it's the environment that we're in that's causing sickness or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Like the people we're around, like the food that we eat,
even like mental stuff. Shit. Yeah, like the stuff you're feeling. I was doing studies about how like neuroinflammation from like, you know, stress and anxiety and stuff like that can really affect your body in negative ways, like with disease. But a lot of people are born into the stigma that, oh, if I get cancer, it's genetics, or like, you know, diabetes runs in my family, there's nothing I can do about it. And like, I might get hate for it, but I think genetics is bullshit. I mean, there's certain things genetics play a part in, like if you're born with an autoimmune disease, you know, but like to say that you're in game and like if it's genetics, there's no way around it, I just think is, you know, very weak programming that has been like programmed into so many people, especially in America. Is just like, oh well, I'm overweight and
it's just an excuse.
I got high cholesterol. It runs in my family, and it's like, dude, look at what you're eating and how you spend your daily activities, and like, are you active? You know, are you taking care of your body? Do you actually read the labels of the things that you're putting inside your body? And 99% of the time, it's like, nah, man, it's genetics.
Yeah, they just blame it on whatever they can, because I guess people are lazy, you know, like.
I think a lot of it too is fear.
Yeah. Like,
fear of like realizing like, oh my God, I've done this to myself this whole time, and now it's up to me to change it, but I'm so conformed to, you know, how I'm living that, you know, it's like almost like putting somebody in a jail cell and like you leave it unlocked and you like don't tell them it's unlocked, and they're just like in their head, well, I'm in jail, so like I don't fucking have nowhere to go. They're not gonna go and like actually try to get out of the cell even though it's unlocked, and they don't know that the whole time.
Damn.
And it just takes that like moment, like, you know, fuck this, I'm gonna try to be free, let me see if this shit's actually unlocked, and then boom, it's like a whole nother world.
That's crazy.
But I see that a lot in the world, man, and it's really sad. But
it is sad, but it happens to everyone. Really,
I feel like it's happening for a reason.
Yeah.
The free will experiment. If none of that was happening, then I wouldn't be able to sit here and talk about the things I'm talking about. You know, I wouldn't have a notion of knowledge to be like, maybe look at things differently. I'd just be like, oh, well, everything's, you know, rainbow and sunshine. You know, everything's perfect. That world would suck too. But then at the same time, at the same time, but like, man,
unless every day, if we're fantasizing about rainbows and sunshine or whatever, if every day was like some building to a next, like you're always progressing to something better and better and better all the time, then it would be cool. But it's like if it was always like the same every day, like I don't know.
There'd be no point in like progressing, like you said. You just be comfortable in the state you're in.
Yeah.
Politics, man, all that shit. Everything's like a big spider web, I feel like. Like, I don't think anything happens for no reason. Like, there's so many things that we experience, whether it be through the news or, like, you know, just aimlessly scrolling. And, like, I feel like eventually once we hit a certain point in our life or consciousness, or when we die, maybe everything just kind of, like, starts zapping together. And you're like, oh, I saw that in this time. And, like, it led me to do this, and then that happened, and then boom, 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 and it's like a whole big spider web, and we're all like spider webs in a big bubble, and it's crazy, dude. Like, we have so many connections. Like, you've experienced so many things through your timeline, and I've experienced so many things through mine, and then it's led us to like merge together and a timeline together, and then it's like the whole, like, dude, look at all these apartments around me. Like, there's people.
Yeah, I know, man.
It's a trippy thing to think about. Like, from crying out of the womb to, like, being here now, you know?
Yeah.
Life is a really beautiful thing, but at the same time, it's super scary if you let it be that way. I used to be super dark-minded, like
you used to think everything was kind of like,
man. I used to hate the world. I was like, fuck the government, you know? I still say fuck the government.
Yeah, fuck the government, for real.
But like I let it really get to me. Like I would feel like, you know, like I was almost at an extremist point where I wanted to just like go out in the public and just like scream at people and be like, what the fuck is wrong? Like why like everybody's just here, like change, bro. Like it's not fucking hard to change. Like everything could at the snap of our fingers if we all just came together and were like, you know what, fuck this shit. Like I'm tired of living like this. I'm tired of the 9-to-5 rat race. I'm tired of paying bills. I'm tired of fucking, you know, like having my life experience stripped away from me and like living for other people, big corporations and government, like all these controlling bodies. But then I just like kind of let go of that mentality. It's still always there
because it's like a passion. You're like passionate about this, and like people, they're gonna probably see all of that like unfold. You know, people are gonna wake up eventually. But you know, once a person wants to open their eyes, they will. But you can't force people to. But you really do. You want people to see this way, right? Like this way of thinking. It's profound. Like waking up is profound.
Yeah. When was you've taken psychedelics, right? When did you take it for the first time, and what'd you take? I
took mushrooms, 2 grams, but I don't know if weed counts as a psychedelic. I mean, I smoked that. Yeah. That was the first thing I tried. I tried it because I was just listening to Kid Cudi, and he just inspired me because I was like, that sounds fun. Like, you know, smoking sounds fun. And I smoked. Usually people for the first time, they don't get high. I hear that all the time. They're like, I didn't get high.
I think the main part for that is because they don't know how to smoke yet. Because I smoked for the first time and I didn't get high, but I wasn't inhaling properly. Like I was like cigar smoking, you know, like I didn't grasp the concept of like the science behind it.
We had a pipe. It was just a little like small pipe, and I hit it, and they told me to inhale it, and I inhaled it, and I took probably 10 or 15 hits from that pipe. Sheesh. And I was like in heaven. Like I remember saying like, this is heaven. I'm in heaven. And I said it over and over and over again. I was in a loop. Like, it's a weird thing, but I was in like a little loop of time, and it felt like everything was kind of just expanding, and it was just weird. Like, time was going by slow, and my thoughts were more interesting. Everything was more interesting. Yeah. And I went to sleep that night, and then smoked for the next 3 months after that, because I was like, I loved it. I loved it for 3 months. It was awesome. But then smoked a bunch of it at one point, like more than I ever did up to that point, and I just had a panic attack, and I was actually hearing voices and shit and hallucinating a little bit. But that moment was like, I cannot smoke anymore. Like, it's not for me. So I stopped smoking weed because
weed is definitely a minor weird psychedelic, and like for a lot of people too, like I never had like really strong experiences with it, but I would like I built my tolerance up pretty fast, and I've had a few moments like when I first started smoking, like I thought I was gonna die once, and like I like went and just like face planted into the bed, and then it felt like I just got back up, but like I looked at the clock and like hours passed, you know.
Damn.
And like I would be very sensitive to like my heartbeat, which is weird.
That's how
I would hear like my heartbeat beating and shit. But once I got past like all of, like, you know, I would call it the gimmicks, if you say, and like once I kind of like became numb to just weed, and I would just feel like the head high, you know, the body high. I would smoke with like people, and you know, some people I smoked with didn't smoke before, and I've always been like a weed connoisseur, you know, quotation, because I love good weed, you know, like pretty weed, you know, strong stuff. And some of the people I smoked with would trip out. They'd be like, dude, I'm fucking tripping. And then I would hear stories of people like, the first time I smoked, I saw like a unicorn, or like, you know, like this one kid said he saw like a wolf on the moon, and like it came after him, like, you know, just weird shit. Yeah. And I would always be like, man, y'all are tripping. Like, what are y'all smoking? But like, I watched a video talking about, I don't know who it was, but he was talking about like how weed is a minor psychedelic, and like for people who smoke all the time, they might not understand, like a newcomer smoking, why they experience that, you know. And I might have experienced, you know, crazy psychedelic shit like hallucinations, but I've smoked so much to where like I've suppressed a lot of things. Like I don't even remember the first time I smoked. I just know it was like I was young.
I know that for me, I take everything as if it's I respect what I do. Yeah. So I respected weed for sure, and I looked at it as if it was, you know, from the very beginning I looked as if it was a medicine, or, you know, like some type of something spiritual to experience. And I went in asking questions, and I remember feeling like it was a weird point in my life where I was like, because I grew up Christian and I was actually turning from God, and I was saying I'm atheist, and then I started smoking and doing all kinds of shit. And I remember the strangest feeling was that I was God. Like I felt as if I was God, but God wasn't me, like, if that makes sense. God was everything. And that was a feeling I'd get every time I smoked. I would feel as if I was everything. I don't know how else to explain that.
Yeah, I felt that off of
it was like a connection with
like hard psychedelics.
Yeah, that's
MDMA made me feel like a sensei. Like I was talking in like analogies and stuff. Like,
that's funny.
Yeah, but no, I had a sense of God-like mentality too. And I think it's a bad thing, man.
Yeah, I wondered if that was like a narcissistic way of thinking.
Yeah, it's like a really egotistical
thing,
and that hit me like a couple months later, and that's when I was like, man, I gotta change. Like, this, like, and that too, I realized that like weed and stuff kind of opened the gate to like this very egotistical spiritualism that I was dealing with, where I was like, I have all the answers, and like everything I say is right, and I know everything, and you know, from my experiences I can talk to anybody, and like I still believe that I can talk to anybody, you know, give good advice. You know, I think I have wisdom.
We all can, really.
But I like back then, and you know, a couple years ago when I was hanging out with my friend Tim a lot, I was just like, I'm like on another plane, dude. And then like once I branched off, you know, he was still on like the, I feel like I'm reincarnated Jesus Christ and stuff, and I was just like, man, like some things are meant for us and some things aren't. And that too, I took, so 4-ACO-DMT is synthetic psilocybin shroom. And I took a lot of Molly with my friend Tim, and we had our brains shot. Our dopamine was just trashed, serotonin trash. And that's when I realized the full like effect of depression and not wanting to be alive, like suicide. You know, like I genuinely told myself, if I feel like this for the rest of my life, I'm going to kill myself eventually. And that was about for like a week. I guess you could call it like a come down, a really bad come down.
I have a name for that, but I'm not sure if it's what you're talking about. But that sounds bad. Yeah,
it was bad. And then I went to his house and I took 4-ACO-DMT, and we tripped balls. We saw like an alien in the sky, and it was like a really beautiful trip. But I remember this burning anxiety in my chest the whole time, and it's probably my fucking heart about to explode from like all the drugs I was doing, dude.
That's
and like
crazy.
I remember looking at him, and I was talking about death and like religion and stuff, and then I was like, man, like this feels like dying. I was like, but something's like I kept looking at my hand, and like a face was forming, and like I thought it was God, like was gonna appear on my hand, like I was gonna see who God was. And I looked at him and I was like, this isn't our time for this, dude. Like, you know, like we're not supposed to have this knowledge yet. Like it felt forced. And I felt like a power over me where it was like not taunting me, but it was like letting me know like I could end everything right now. And it was like a really fearful feeling of like, but like at the same time I was like,
because it's like responsibility.
Yeah, I was like accepting it too. I was like, and that's when I was like, man, I got to change. Like all this anger in me, like you know, like all this like, oh, I'm spiritual and you know I'm fucking better than people and like people are below me and stuff like that. I was like, all that shit's bullshit, man. Like I'm living a fucking lie and things got to change. And after that day, like, I went home and my grandparents were on the patio drinking. And I remember opening the door and I just looked at, like, I wanted to start crying. I just looked at them and I was like, man, I love y'all. Yep. And they were like, you okay? And I was like, yeah, I just know I love y'all. And then I fucking went to sleep. And, like, that whole next week at work, I was just, like, so, like, different, man. I woke up, like, wanting to go to work. I was like, this is fucking great. Like,
you just had this, like, gratitude.
Yeah, gratitude towards everything. Like, I would look at the trees and just start smiling, and then eventually that faded. So I guess it was like I was reborn. You know, like the young, childlike attitude towards things. You know, everything is great and dandy, and then reality starts setting in again. But that 2-year little spiritual journey was a ride, and I'm grateful for it, but
it's time to, like,
yeah, it led me down a dark path at the same time, you know.
It's time to, like, recoup and find.
It never really made me
else.
feel like close to death. Like, I always had a burning fear in it, like in my chest. When I thought about death, it would just terrify me. And it's like I would tell people, you know, like, oh, like, I know what's gonna happen after we die. You know, we're this and that, and, you know, this is what happened. We're light workers and all this stuff. And it was just like I was trying to create this, like, fear-based, like, belief, you know. And it's like almost the same. Like, I was basically making my own religion. I was just like, oh, you know.
I guess it's because, like, we kind of, as humans, want to know things so badly that we could just come up with anything and say that's probably the truth or something. Like, but when it comes from fear, like you're saying, it's like, is it really that way that you're saying? Like,
yeah, the propaganda is insane. Like, I think it's really demonic, kind of, the spirituality and stuff. I mean, look at oh my God, you know who I'm talking about, bro. The dude
You're talking about that guy,
the dude who killed himself. He was like Indigo Child. Fucking, he rapped with
You're talking about Capital Steez?
Capital fucking Steez, bro. Yeah. Hearing his story kind of made me, like, question a lot too, like, because he was very, like-minded. Like, when I read the interviews of, like, what his friends, like, said he would be talking about, I was like, bro, like, this is what I was talking about. And then, like, they talked about how, like, the week leading up to his suicide, he, like, was just, like, talking to himself and, like, telling people, like, things are, like, gonna change and, like, ascension. And, like, bro, me and Tim went down that same, like, me and Tim for a little bit believed that, like, these beings out of the sky were gonna come and take us from Earth, and we were gonna, like, be a part of, like, this team of, like, bettering everything. Like, there's, like, this universal law, and we were gonna be a part of that system, you know, of, like, bettering the universe. And then I kind of, like, didn't stop believing it, but I, like, kind of got a feeling like this is, like, something different, like, than what I'm being told. And then I heard the Capital Steez story, and, like, he was clutching a Bible and jumped off the building at an exact time that he was, like, repeating over and over, like, throughout that week. And I was just like, bro, like, that's when it hit me. Like, our minds aren't capable of, like, we don't know shit, really. But what's on this dimension, like, and that's when I, like,
it's kind of like asking an ant to what it thinks.
Yeah, and, like,
is,
if
like,
you show an ant, like, dude, like, look at everything, they're gonna be like, this is too much.
Yeah.
Like, fuck this shit. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to be an ant anymore, but what do I do?
Yeah.
So it's like, that's when it hit me.
That's what you're talking about. I've experienced that throughout my life, and I think people do experience that if they're open to some kind of learning experience that's greater than just the run-of-the-mill, like, lifestyle that everyone lives. Like, if you're open to learning something, you will realize that actually there's no need for so much knowledge. You actually want to stay present. Like, that's what I've learned from it. Just the moment is so precious. Like, even just
this is like a higher consciousness. I feel like being able to have free will and to live, and I think we will reach a higher plane. But this right here is like something that is gifted to us, and it's like right in the middle of, like, it could be really, really dark, or it can be really, really, like, beautiful, or it could be all of it combined into one. And I think, like, that's, like, the whole life and death contrast. Like, life is deemed as amazing and death now is deemed as like shitty, but like you could switch roles and be like death is amazing and life is shitty, but it just depends on who you are as a person. But I'm coming to the conclusion that everything is amazing, even the things that we perceive as like really bad. Like, you know, my parents are gonna die one day. I thought about that, you know, and I would be like, oh, that sucks, you know, like it's sad, but at the same time it's like being able to be a part of this system that's like functioning fully and, you know, doing my part and then seeing my parents do their part with me in their life, you know, it's kind of a beautiful, we're like a part of a puzzle.
It actually is
cool.
kind of, there's a comfort for some reason within me I've found when you look at something that was before you and something that will be after you, because it's like that kind of is what you're afraid of. You're afraid of something not being there, but in reality, in truth, there is stuff that's happening all the time. And it's like you're kind of connected to your body, but you kind of just want to fight that feeling of like leaving. But it's comforting to me to know that there's something else, like even though
it doesn't revolve around me.
Right.
And like that too is what I used to fear, was like the feeling of being so small and like, what's the word for it, insignificant. But then, like, you know, as I get older, and like that's why family is such a beautiful thing. And like, you know, now you don't even have to get married, but just like falling in love and like, you know, just being a good person just makes all of this so much better. And like simple, I think that's things. It's the simple things that make you really like appreciate what we were gifted. And a lot of people throw it away, dude. I almost threw it away. I was suicidal. I was depressed. I was like, fuck the world, fuck humans. Like, everybody's just dumb and ignorant and evil. And then, of course, my reality is going to be that. I'm just going to only see negative things. It's if like, you're willing to change, you can change.
For sure. Well, I think that wraps it up. I think that was a good episode. We talked for 40 minutes. So
40 minutes, man. Yeah. I appreciate you for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks for doing this podcast with me. This is episode 2. So
episode 2. What's the title? Do you know the title of your podcast yet, or are you still?
No, I still haven't came up with like a name for it.
Hey, bro, but stay consistent, and not even a year, bro, you'll have a whole setup. We'll have mics and shit. Fucking all this shit will be going on. So.
All right, thank you all for watching.
Yeah, peace.
Peace.